Everyone. My name is Man Alone. This is my YouTube channel. I probably don't own it, but this is where you can find me. I'm also working on getting channels at America Online, Prodigy, and CompuServe. And today we're talking Across 1,000 Dead Worlds, a solo, mostly solo. You could play it as a duo, trio, quartet, quintet. But a lot of people are soloing it, and more people every day, which I hope will be you, which is why I'm creating this video series of step-by-step how to play the game. We are now on part 3. And in part 1, we went over the introduction, character creation, and a broad overview of the rules. In part 2, we did an introduction to combat. That's a little bit of a tough nut to crack, and so that has its own video. And today we're going to do playing the game, which you might say, what the hell does that mean? It's a little too broad, but you could blame Alex, the author, because this is the actual title of the chapter, is playing the game. We're actually going to start just a wee bit before that in stress. I know all about that, huh? Am I right? Because that is part of the combat chapter, but I think it plays into a lot of other situations besides just combat. So we'll start there. You can see on the right hand of the screen or the left hand of the screen if you are south of the equator. Stealth and being cautious right here. We're reading from the system reference document, which is available for free on across1000deadworlds.com. I do have the PDF to the game that is included in the hardcover, as well as some tokens and some of these combat maps like this. But I want to leave a little something left to be desired so that you work yourself up into a frenzy of avarice, of unrestrained, unbridled desire for this game. So you will be able to see it over here, but it's going to be further away from you, and it's going to have a glare, and you're going to say, that's not as good as the real thing. Exactly. Okay, that's the point, because it is a damn shame that this game does not have way more videos on it than it should. And I was sitting around being ornery about the fact that, oh, there's no instructions on how to play this game. And then I'm like, well, in order for there to be instructions on how to play the game, somebody has to go ahead and do that. And if I'm not willing to do that, then what kind of a man am I, as Steven Seagal might say. In the mail today, I received starting crew and exploration sites, actually yesterday, I suppose. And this is just a little supplement that I got. It's available on across1000deadworlds.com, and it has some pre-generated crew members and exploration sites, so we probably won't use that today. We could actually reference from it maybe if it comes up, but we would use that more in gameplay. And I also received from Alex T 2 more of his books, Under Ashen Skies by Alex T and Alan Barr, and Broken Shores, both of them very intriguing looking RPGs that we are going to take a look at, not in this video, because that's not what you're here for. In fact, you may have never met me before. And if that's the case, some of you are going to have bad counter-transference with me. I'm going to remind you of somebody that you don't like, and you've already clicked away. And even so, I wish you well. Goodbye to the 16 of you. Those who stay, we're also going to talk about Fabula Ultima TTJRPG, not in this video, but in the first episode of the Waffle Cast, which I'm going to create right after I'm done with this one. Again, for those of you not familiar with this channel, I will often spend about the first 37 minutes of a video bullshitting and wasting time. And, we do love that, and I'm not going to eliminate that completely. But when we have a more matter-of-fact video like this, where I want to get down to business, I'm going to siphon off all the waffling into the Waffle Cast. And so you can check that out on my page if you subscribe. If you don't subscribe, you'll have to search for it. And let's be honest, if you don't subscribe, we're never going to see each other again. Okay. All right. So we're talking about stealth. This is a mechanic that is in quite a few sci-fi games specifically, especially I would say aliens, because we want some mechanic that represents the fear, claustrophobia, lack of options of sort of spinning along in a vacuum. And this game is no different. the pressures of diving, diving being the thing that you're a diver here, and the thing you're doing is you're going to these sites to excavate different things. The pressures of diving will slowly but surely erode your determination. Long hours, close quarters, not knowing what dangers lie in wait at your destination. So that's like if you're going to these planets or you work at Amazon. It's enough to break even the soundest person. The following non-exhausted list details times a diver is guaranteed to earn stress. And so these are times that you will earn stress. You know what? I was on stealth. I wasn't even on stress. I only read the first two letters. So these are times that you are guaranteed to experience stress. But obviously, if you're GMing or you're solo playing, anything that happens where you're like, oh yeah, that would be stressful, you want to add a commensurate amount of stress. But this should be a guide to measure that stress. Boarding a ship to start a new mission automatically gives you +5. You're going to start the game with 0. Facing danger, +2. Tolerating someone's nervous tick for a long time, +1. Being in darkness or in a hostile or unknown environment, +1 stress around. Rationing food, +5 stress a day. So you may say, who cares? I can handle a little bit of stress. I was born in the stress. By the time you were stressed, I was already blinded. And so this can be a cool mechanic, an immersive mechanic in games. It can also be a, stressful mechanic or sort of annoying mechanic if it is difficult to remedy the stress. There's a couple of things in this game, though, that make it a little bit more tolerable. First of all, you have a stat. Now, here is the character that I am going to be using for my solo campaign, Adrian Ilgaz. And you have... let's see. I'm trying to find how we're going to a character's. Okay, I'm just going to read. Sorry, let me just read here. A character's resolve skill can slow down the accumulation of stress. Each time a character is confronted with a situation that would make them gain any amount of stress, they may roll a resolve check to reduce the amount to 1, unless the GM explicitly specifies that this is not possible. Okay, and so a resolve check is going. That what I was looking for is what the resolve check is going to involve, because I forgot. Let me give a little pause, not to waste your time. Okay, sorry about that. Just to fully confront my humiliation, for some reason I momentarily confused resolve for one of your main attributes, but of course resolve is a skill that is a derived attribute. So mine here for Adrian Ilgaz would be 10, and so everything is going to be a roll over 20 plus the skill, and so if you hit that check, you will be able to reduce the amount of stress by 1. And if it is a repeated stress sort of situation, my job is sort of a repeated stress situation, you can roll a resolve check, I guess, each time that comes up. Now, who cares? This is a fictional player character. They're not real. Let's get them as stressed as possible, you might say, you cruel, sadistic person. But no, there's consequences to you as the player, because at certain levels of buildup, stress starts to cause certain things. Some of them are narrative, some of them are mechanical. So at 3 stress, your nervous tick appears, and it will only disappear after losing any amount of stress. And again, everyone is assigned a nervous tick. My character has a laughing loudly and nervously. I'm not sure if it's like a full-blown pseudo-bulbar affect where they're laughing all the time, or if it's just that thing of like why I for some reason started laughing at my Uncle Steve's funeral, and I was extremely sad about it, but I had this embarrassing, I couldn't stop laughing. I was young and I don't know what my brain was doing, but I just started laughing, and I was ushered out very sternly by my father. At 10 stress, you react negatively to stress. Oh, I should also add that if you have a nervous tick and you're in a party, that nervous tick is going to affect others. It's going to start spreading the stress. At 10 stress, you might react negatively. And we have this, when a character has accumulated 10 stress, they roll resolve. to avoid having a negative reaction. If they fail, you roll on the appropriate stress reaction table. So the two tables are if you're around others or alone. And it's 1d10. And each of these will have different implications, such as like hyperventilating, binging, becoming uncooperative, etc. At 15 stress, everything's with a -10. That's a killer, because even though you're rolling over d20, my resolve check that I have at 10 is not, that's not the average for my skills. So if I have a skill of 4 and I'm rolling 1d20, and I'm trying to get over 20 and I'm at a -10, things are going to start being an uphill battle. And I should say, this is the thing in other games that can make stress this sort of like beginning of the end. Anytime you start accumulating stress, you go, well, it's just a matter of time before I flush this campaign down the toilet, because it's hard to recover from this, but there are mechanisms in this game that help to do that. At 20 stress, you earn a permanent obsession. So you might be like, I love Carly Rae Jepsen. Likely not. There's a list of obsession, hopefully related to the stressor. And this is also going to reset your stress, though, and you're going to gain 1 trauma, which traumas are much harder to heal, much more severe in the impact, but they will clear the stress in that moment. And so you have this obsession. They don't have mechanical consequences, but it's going to make your character harder to work with, your NPCs, the other players. And then when you gain a trauma, you're going to dump the stress and add a trauma. Here, the D10 list of this, you can maybe roll on the negative traits table again. You get extreme nervousness. You gain 5 permanent stress. And there's also a lashing out. This is a way to lose stress, right? It would not be it would be called a maladaptive coping skill, but you could lash out, and that will burn off 10 stress. But then you are going to the person that you lash out at has to do a will check, or they're going to lash out in return. And suddenly, if people are failing their will checks, you're going to have just a bunch of lashers lashing, just a lash fest. And then you do a will check back, so you're like parrying people screaming at each other. Incremental trauma is measured in trauma points. Each time a character accumulates 20 stress, they receive 1 trauma and roll on the trauma table. These results are long-lasting. They can only be reduced by a psychiatrist, which in the SRD doesn't have the page number, but I believe it's 394. And suffice to say, that's wrong. Suffice to say, trauma is going to take a lot of money and time to get rid of. You'll need to go to on the station, you'll need to go and spend many credits and spend a lot of time to eliminate that. A character who accumulates 10 trauma is considered lost and dead, even if you're not, physically injured. And this would be, pretty true to life, honestly. If you're traumatized 10 times, you're probably not going to be able to be doing deep space exploration missions. Okay, so due to this trauma, your character is going to acquire some negative traits. They could be problematic, but you can permanently remove one of them by forfeiting a talent. Again, this talent system, I have this is a place for me that these talents are used in the same way in a lot of games. I always have a little bit of a problem with this because it's sort of immersion breaking for me. This game has 2 of these where if you have 5 talents and you get a new one, you have to drop one, which doesn't make sense to me. And then this also has that you can give up a talent to remove a negative trait, which I suppose I could imagine that one. That one's actually more realistic to me. Say that you're like, I am amazing at long jumping. I'm an Olympic long jumper, but whenever I'm long jumping, I'm very angry with everyone because it's very hard for me to turn it off. When I'm out there and I've got to jump long, don't mess with me. I'm in the zone. And one day I come to my wife, her name is Sweet Pea, and I say, Sweet Pea, I've decided you're the only long jump I need. And I give up the sport so that I can be with her. But then one day they come to me. There's a person, his name is Walter Trehorn, the cosmic coach. And he says, we're putting together a long jumping team to fight for Earth. and we need you, and you say, I don't do that anymore. I gotta stop this. All right, we're carrying on. Hacking. Okay, so in this game, there are, again, these R-size systems. There's these ancient systems we don't really understand, so this is not going to be easy to hack into them. It's a lot of symbols. It's a lot of, an interface that defies human comprehension. And so in this game, you start that skill with -5, and it is a death-defying venture to even learn how to hack into these systems. Savvy divers could take control of these systems and do some remarkable things. And these ships you take in this game are remarkable. We'll hear more about them, but like, for instance, they're just like hovering 10 feet above the ground at all times. Nobody really knows like what's causing the propulsion. They immediately kick into gear when people step on board. R-size systems have a difficulty level 1 to 6. If you're soloing, you can decide that yourself or roll a d6. You decide the difficulty level. If it's a 1, the system's locked. There's no getting in. A cipher allows a reroll. A black cipher, 2 rerolls. And hacking an R-size system takes 1 round per difficulty level. Okay, so that's going to be an expenditure of time and a clock, which we will talk about. Emotions is an optional rule, but it just looks very appealing to me. There's this tracker for emotional state in the middle of the character sheet. It starts at composed, and then there's different things over here that will, on the lower right, that will affect that. To determine a character's emotional state, we use the matrix. At the beginning of the game, you're composed. You remain that way until certain situations challenge emotions. And then you make an emotional state check where you have to pass a will check to avoid being led by emotion. So this is important. As far as I understand this, the question is not, is your emotion good or bad? It's, are you going to be led by that emotion? Are you going to allow that emotion to take control of you? If the emotional state check was brought on by a negative emotion trigger, failure moves the character 1 step to the left. If it was positive, to the right. If a situation would move the character toward a positive emotional state, the player can choose to forfeit the will check and simply let the emotion overtake them. So I think this is a really cool system. However, I will say, as a solo player, this is what's going to start taxing my cognitive load if I have to start adjusting something like this on a spectrum. I want to do it, but I feel as though I'm often going to forget to do it, or I'm going to put that in the back seat. We'll see when I play through it if that's something that's going to happen. These are the effects of emotional state. Each of these like check marks has a different effect. Hopeless, you have completely given up and see no point in continuing. -2 to all skills, plus d4 to damage. I assume that's damage to you. Maybe not. Why would a hopeless character have more damage given? Because they're like, I don't give a crap. Watouche. An enraged character has no more patience left and will snap or attack at anyone. +1 to combat skills, -1 manipulation. A nervous character has -1 resolve, +1 stamina. Composed is nothing. In addition to specific events, discoveries, and GM decisions, the following example situations require an emotional state check. Negative emotion triggers are entering combat, suffering a wound, triggering security, gaining a negative trait, rationing. Yeah, so there's a lot of trigger points here. And so we'll see if this is something that is easy to remember and incorporate or not. Positive, helping an ally, healing a wound, clearing a site, gaining a level. Okay. Let's read the example. Jay is feeling composed, but as he enters combat, he must perform an emotional state check. He has a will of 13, but rolls a 3. The sum is less than 20, so he fails the check. Entering combat is a negative trigger, so Jay moves 1 step to the left along the emotional matrix. No effect yet. Yes, I should point that out, that not every time you fail do you get to a lower state of emotion, because you can there's like these interstitial marks along the way here. And so you might go down here towards nervous, but then you have a positive check and you go back towards composed. You get it? Do you get it? Let me get a good zoom. Okay. All right. We are now at playing the game. Let's. Okay. So On this page here is going to be the standard gameplay structure. And this is like incredibly simplified. I think it's really helpful, but I have a way to make it even easier. Who doesn't love an easy to remember mnemonic device? Okay, because what we're going to do here is we're going to go choose destination, starship, supplies. Then we're going to journey there. Then we're going to explore, document, and return. Oh my gosh, how do I remember that? Well, just wait. You'll never forget this. You have to suppose that there is a wise older brother lecturing his younger brother, whose name is Jasper, Jasper does not remember that, doesn't understand the the sort of ephemeral nature of life and how it is fleeting and how nothing can live forever. So just think of this wise older brother whose name is, we'll say, Epimetheus. So Epimetheus and Jasper, this is so easy to remember. You're never going to forget this. Epimetheus says, dumb, stupid, silly Jasper, everything dies, remember, because they had talked about that before. Yeah, you won't be forgetting that anytime soon. So D is destination, S is choosing your starship, S is choosing your supplies, J is your journey, E is your exploration, D is your documentation, and R is your return, aka dumb, stupid, silly Jasper, everything dies, remember? Said by this very common name. Let me erase that so it doesn't get on my hand. All right, so what we're going to talk about is scheduling a mission. Now, there are pre and post mission activities that you could do all around Karam Station. There's lots of fun things to do on Karam Station, and that will all be covered in Chapter 7, which is downtime activities. And there are lots of carousing to do, bonding, training, studying, learning. You can go to different places in Karam. There's a museum. There's some gardens. But we're going to start with scheduling a mission. So when the PC's crew is ready, whether that's just you, 3 or 5, so you'll have 2 NPCs with you or 4. When you're ready, you report to mission control, and they'll only allow a full crew, 1, 3, or 5, not 2, not 4, not 6. And it's depending on the ship. So there's 3 different ships, and we'll show you pictures of those on the next page. They're very complicated. They're called Circle, Triangle, and Pentagon. When there are empty seats, use the rules on page 356 to randomly generate the remaining crew members, or we will be able to use, if we're in a pinch, our starting crew and exploration site generator. For cruiser 3 or 5, a team leader must also be chosen by voting or chance. Again, if you're the solo player, you're going to decide that, and it's going to be your player character most likely. The team leader has authority over the mission, so the crew is encouraged to listen to them as long as their orders are reasonable and for the greater good of the team or its mission. Okay, choosing the right spaceship. The main difference between R-size spaceships is how many crew members they hold, since the KSA strongly recommends, and again, KSA is Karam Station Authority, strongly recommends and generously provides the minimum supplies for each crew member. I'm getting a really bad glare, so let me just move this a little bit. There isn't much free space left, even in the larger models, of course. The crew can remove oxygen tanks and ration to make room if they feel confident about not needing them. But remember, having a shortage of those things is going to cause like a stress penalty every day. So basically, in each of the descriptions, there's this key. The top part is the designation for the ship, KRM-03, nickname Triangle, number of passengers in bottom left, and then the little luggage thing is total storage capacity, and then 96 is how much is free. It's kind of like when you get a new iPhone and it's got all of the firmware on there, plus maybe they installed like the entire U2 catalog, if anyone remembers that. And so technically you're supposed to have like 80 gigs, but you really only have like 72. That's what's going on here. The KRM-1 is a perfectly round ship with a diameter of 32 feet. And that is, I'm just making sure that what is, okay, so actually, okay, yeah, I'm just making sure that what it says in the SRD is the same as the book here. A perfectly round ship. As all R-size spaceships, it hovers 20 inches above the ground. The KRM-3 is a triangle. The KRM-5 is a pentagon. Again, none of this stuff was named by RSI. We don't know their language. We don't have any of them to talk to. They're very ancient. We never recovered them. Okay. And then you get to pick a name. That's fun. Why don't we do a D100? Everyone always wants to see me roll this gigantic D100 that never stops rolling, so I have to like create a boundary for it. Good luck, friend. Wow, what a great die. I don't even know what the hell this is. So is it this one, I guess? Or this one? No, that one feels like to the side. Okay, we're going to say 37. So this ship is called the Arcadia. Oh, we get an adjective as well. Using my Fate Mill, available on towerhousecreative.com. And of course, as always... Oh, nope. That's not the right one. And of course, as always, well, it's not coming up, but if you do Man Alone 20, you get 20% off on Tower House Creative on the Fate Mill and other products. But we'll use that because it's functionally a D20 as well, and we roll a 19. And so it's not just the Arcadia, it is the Twilight Arcadia. Fun. Jacob. Who's the other one? Jacob, and Robert Pattinson's character was named Marley. No, that's Scrooge. What the hell was it? Jacob? I know that you're sitting there right now and you know it and you're very frustrated with me. So we'll just move on. All right, traveling to a known destination. So you have the option here to travel to a known or unknown destination. The safest option for novices and deep divers who want to take it easy is going to a known destination. Anything can happen anywhere, but visiting a known destination gives the crew access to all previous reports. So there are two types of known destinations, those that you yourself have explored and sites which a different crew has explored. If the crew is returning to a site they've explored, they simply take the same ship and continue exploring with the same site report sheet. All right, so we should take a brief detour here to find a site report sheet. Now, this is, I will say, one thing that's a little bit intimidating about this game, but I think once you start filling it out, it's going to make a lot more sense, is the amount of sheets that we have here. And unfortunately, on the website, there's only 2 of them are form fillable right now, so I definitely hope that changes. Planet side report, non-player characters, creature index, site expedition. Oh my god, I forgot which one it was. The same site report sheet. This might be the site expedition. Is that site report? Is that the same thing? Yeah, it must be. Site expedition report. Site expedition report. That's probably the same thing. So this is a site report sheet, and so when you go, you'll fill one of these out for each of the sites, and you can refer back to this. Now, you may look at this and say, wow, that's a lot, but in fact, this is just an organized way to record information that if you were solo playing in other games of this level of complexity, you'd need to record yourself. And I, for one, would rather have guidance of how to go through and fill these things out than depend on my own memory in terms of remembering what's important to know. All right. If instead the crew chooses to visit a site which has been partially explored by another team, the site will be randomly assigned by the KSA, mostly to avoid accusations of favoritism. The previous crew's report will detail which type of site it is and what they encountered. To show this, simply black out half of the resources in xenoanthropological find slots and generate half the potential encounters. The rest of the sheet is blank and as usual to be discovered by your crew. Now, interestingly, but I'm not sure, I thought at one point I did print out like an example of one of these that was half filled out. So I guess maybe not. Also, my printer ran out of ink while I was doing this, which was... and I think it's dead. I think the printer's dead, honestly. I don't know what's wrong with it. It's just like smears the ink now. Yeah, that was like its last gasp right there. Poor guy. All right, I don't have it, but let me read that again because that didn't... I thought I understood that, and then when I read it to you, I didn't, so why not take a second to read it again? If instead the crew chooses to visit a site which has been partially explored by another team, the site will be randomly assigned. The previous crew's report will detail which type of site it is and what they encountered. To show this, simply black out half of the resources and xenoanthropological find slots and generate half of the potential encounters. Okay, so that's basically just saying, I was thinking that it was going to say, you know, you want to like randomize all this stuff, but essentially what this means is you black out half the resources, and so that just means like you're only going to be able to find half of these, even if, you know, if you find everything there. And the xenoanthropological, right here, you black out those. Half of those, and then generate half of the potential encounters at the bottom here. So rather than having so it's just basically you're going on a half mission is what I understand right now. We'll see if that understanding changes. All right, traveling to an unknown destination, most divers eventually choose to bite the bullet and risk it all by voyaging towards one of the 1,000 unknown destinations. When traveling to an unknown destination, the crew starts with an entirely blank site report sheet as the one found at the end of this book. Yeah, that's the one I showed. All right, so let me review that. The whole point of this here is if you travel to a completely new site, you have a blank sheet here. If you travel to a site that you have been to, you pick up the sheet you were using and keep using it. If you travel to a new site that somebody else has been to, you just pretend that it's already been half explored, and so you block out half of this sheet, this column, half of the resources, I guess like half of these resources, half the artifacts, and then you only have to generate half the encounters because the site's already been half explored. Choosing supplies. All right. Let me do a rather than a read through, I'm going to do my best to explain this in my own words in a way that is easy to remember. So let me clear my throat. Okay. Every time that you go on an expedition, you will receive the KSA Basic Survival Package. That's going to have per person a level B hazmat suit, a vac suit, oxygen pellets 5, batteries 5, 1 alprazolam Xanax, 1 KSA service pistol, 1 combat knife. Every diver suit has a gear harness, oxygen pellet converter, 2 shoulder-mounted LEDs, and internal comms. And then the crew as a whole gets a security scanner, medical kit, thruster pack, survival kit, 6 oxygen tanks per crew member, 6 supplies, food and water per crew member. Okay. So this is let's say, the basic thing that you're going to go out with. However, a couple of things here. Number one, in Karam Station, you would be able to buy, and this is like on page 390 in chapter 7, where it has info through about Karam Station. For instance, you can buy some extra, let me loop this book around without hitting the mic. You can get an extra oxygen tank for 20, and it's going to take up a 2 gear space. Remember, we have 96 gear space, and they consume 1 tank per week because there's a lot of random factors involved here. For instance, you don't know how long your voyage is going to be. Your voyage can be anywhere from like 1 to 7 weeks. And so you try to make the best estimate that you can, but here's the problem. If you don't use it, you lose it. So if you buy a bunch of extra stuff and then you go on your expedition and you don't use it, you don't get a refund. The exception to this is if you find absolutely nothing at the site, then you will get it back, or it'll be considered like not used. And I think that's actually like a kind of hand-waving game mechanic that says if you go to a site and literally come up empty-handed, go on another, like take a mulligan. All right. So you're then going to, once you're ready, you have your crew ready, you've explored Karam Station to your liking, and you are ready to go, you are going to have to, you're done buying your supplies, packing, balancing your weight, determining things like that. You are then going to have to go to the destination, okay? If you have already been to the site, that voyage is going to take the same number of weeks as it did the first time. If you're traveling to a site explored by another crew, it lasts D6 plus 1 weeks. That's for a known destination. But for an unknown destination, we're going to use the voyage time rules, which are on page 124 in the book, but here they are. Voyage time. The toughest part of a deep diver's job is not the exploration of potentially deadly alien worlds and ruins, but the interminable voyage time. It's like going to a vacation as a kid. The uncertainty over whether or not the team will have enough supplies for the round trip is a mind killer. Fear is the mind killer. Space voyages take 1 to 7 weeks, with each crew member consuming 1 oxygen and 1 time supplies each week. The durations of the trip is determined as follows. Reaching any destination takes a minimum of 1 week. At the end, and remember, this R-size ship is just kind of driving you there. At the end of each week, roll a destination check. There's a 40% chance, plus 10% each week, that the ship arrives at its destination. And roll each week until the destination check is a success. The odds reach 100%. So this is going to be a D100 sort of roll. And you do, since it's a 40% chance, this would be a roll under. So you need to roll 40 or under. And if you roll 40 or under in the first week, then it will take 1 week. And so you just roll a D100 for that. And so we will use our dyadic D20. And to do a D100, we'll just count the black die as 10s and the red die as 1s. And so let's try to roll under 40 here. So we rolled this is not going to do it, 98. Okay. So now we have to add 10%. We can add 10% to that, but we have to consume oxygen and supplies. But now we have to roll 50 or under, so a little bit higher chance. And now we've rolled an 8, 82. Not going to do it. Not going to do it, friends. And so now we add 10%, 60. Another oxygen, another supply. And finally, we've rolled a 43, and we are under, and so we arrive. Clever. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. At the end, okay, roll each week until the destination checks a success, or the odds reach 100%, so that would be 7 weeks. Or until you run out of reserves and die. God, that'd be horrible. That's like... Not only is it like, well, I guess it's the same if you die in like a very snowy area, right? Because the snow covers you, no one finds you. Because I was going to say in space, you're just kind of drifting. But at least in space, you could have like the Tralfamadorians will find you one day before they blow up the universe. Okay. So that's tracking time for an unknown destination. Along the way, you have a random travel event. So in addition to rolling that D100 to see if you have arrived, or if you are returning to a site or doing one that's already explored, you can just you don't have to roll that each week. You already know how many weeks it's going to take. But if not, each week you want to roll a random travel event that is checked at the end of the week. So if you have to travel again, you are going to roll a 20% under 20 for a random travel event that resets to 20% upon arrival to the site. But this is a cumulative 20. Okay, so what I understand to that of that is that you would add 20 each week. And if I understand that wrong, tell me, because I read this a couple times and that's what I believe, is that it's this cumulative, it's going to keep accumulating. So the first week it's 20%, then 40, then 60, then 80. And if it's 100%, then that's 100%. And so just to say, first week we roll a 48, no travel event. Now it's 40. And now we've rolled a 52, no travel event. Now it's the third week, 59. So that would still come under 60. So no travel event. Now, if we had reached it in 3 weeks, that's it. But say we go a fourth week, now we have a 61, and that will be a, so that doesn't make sense, actually, because if it kept increasing, it would be less and less likely. Please hold. Well, I think I'm going to squish my mind grapes. I'm not so bright. Okay. So, basically, I believe what this means is that you are going to have it's going to go in the opposite direction. You're going to have a 20% chance of a random travel event. So that means it would start at, 80. You'd need to roll over 80. You need to roll, sorry, I had it backwards. You need to roll under 20 on the first week to generate a travel event. At the second week, it's going to be under 40. I just had it backwards. Like, I thought if you roll under those, you avoid it. But in fact, if you roll under them, if you roll under a 20% in the first week, under 20, then you're going to have a travel event. And then we got out of that the first week, and then the second week, and then the third week. Okay. So in the third week, we have a random travel event, and for that, we're going to roll a D4. And do I have a D4, an ugly, ugly D4? So let's just see what this random travel event would be. 4. It's going to be mental or physical issue. And so then we would go to the D10 table for mental and physical issues. And we'll roll a D10 for that. Okay, 3. The ship attempts to interface with a crew member, resulting in a misjump. What a good lead off. Because the next thing we're going to talk about are misjumps. Misjump is a beauty pageant in which members jump. No, misjump, our side technology never fails on its own, but external factors can cause malfunctions. The most terrifying of these is the so-called misjump. This common term belies the fact that our size ships don't jump anywhere. They fold time, space, and travel within a warp bubble. Wow, these are stuck-up ships. Like, excuse me. I don't jump anywhere. I fold time, space, and I travel within a warp bubble. But regardless of this terminology, a misjump can range from annoying to a matter of life and death. I hope that one of these is that you could jump into like solid matter. If time dilation takes place, randomly determine if the time difference is positive, time passes aboard the ship but not elsewhere, or negative time. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know, friends. I have to think about that one. If a time dilation takes place, randomly determine if the time difference is positive or negative. Oh, I see. If that's an outcome. Cool. Whoa. So you could just like all of a sudden be 10 months in the past. If time dilation takes place, randomly determined. Randomly. Sorry, my Midwestern non-specific accent just came out. Randomly determined. So yeah, we have a time dilation, and we'll just flip here with my Morkborg dice. And we have a 2. And so we'll say that that is a negative time dilation. Time passes elsewhere, but not on the ship, which meant that what was like 1 second to us is 10 months to people. Well, we'd have to roll a D10 for that. So I guess 2 months on the outside. Or 2 weeks, right? Well, I didn't roll for that. I would have to roll. You get it. All right. So a loud boom, systems reboot, but nothing else. I keep thinking that says Tim Dillon. Time dilation, transit dilation. Oh, I see. Okay. And then if it's a 3 to 4, we'll then roll on the time dilation miss jump, 5 to 6 on the transit dilation miss jump. That's a bit fun. Because I guess also what you have to consider here is that a miss jump, this is how a miss jump could be potentially disastrous. And I hope you're sitting down because this is going to be tough to hear for all of us. If the time dilation is positive, where time passes aboard the ship but not elsewhere, you're going to have to eat during those weeks and use supplies. So I would say if you have a positive time dilation, you die because you're not going to have enough supplies for that, is my understanding. And then once you're done with that time dilation, you're still going to have to travel the rest of the way. So I wish there was, it's not like it's that hard to figure out if it's a positive or negative, but I wish it was more than just randomly determined. I wish they just said a D2. And then secondary consequences. So is there anything here? What triggers a secondary misjumps effects? I'm not quite sure, but we have the consequences of a misjump. And then we have a secondary misjump effects. But why? I guess just if I wanted to be more real with it, I can do a secondary misjumps effect. I'm trying to think of why I would ever choose to do this because if this was all just narrative, I'd be like, yeah, okay, this is cool. We can see kind of like what happened with the time jump, or the miss jump. But some of these are like gain stress, receive a negative trait. If I already have these severe effects by the time dilation and stuff, I don't think I'm going to do a secondary effect. Maybe I'll reach out to Alex, see if we could figure out something more about that. Okay. So then we're going to arrive at the site. And of course, this is not always good news. The coordinates are thousands of years old, so the destination might be missing or dangerous. Roll on the arrival table to find out what happens next. Ignore results below 16 if it is a known site. So we'll just roll a D100 here. And we have a 69. Okay, let's just get through it. We'll do it together. This site is a station or outpost orbiting a planet or moon. Okay. So yeah, it's different options here with the arrival. The arrival can go wrong. I love this one. If it's a 1 or 2, this is very unlikely, but the ship jumps into a red giant. The ship and all those within it are destroyed. I kind of like this because this could literally happen at any time. I could be playing a solo campaign for like 2 years and I'm like, all right, time to sit down with my favorite crew. Let's see what they're up to today. Another exploration. Roll a 1. They're all gone. But if you're a savvy solo player, you could say, but wait, I actually was secretly holding a red giant Defender helmet. And I'm going to do a flashback to talk about when I bought that. Okay, so we talked about voyage time rationing. Karam Station Authority recommends carrying a minimum 6 oxygen tank and supplies per crew member on any given voyage. But in times of need, a character may consume half their allotted food and water supplies for weeks. So yes, if they're under stress, their intake is going to go up. This allows the crew to, their intake is going to go down if things are not going well. And if I had a time dilation, I would do this, but it accumulates stress. And it saps their strength. At the end of each week without full rations, a character's maximum wounds is reduced by 1. That's not with any rations. That is with not full rations. Their maximum wounds. Now, let's just take a look here. Maximum Wounds. Kind of a cool band name, right? But the maximum wounds are going to reduce by 1, and they recover from this as soon as they eat for a week. But if your maximum wounds are reduced to 0, the character dies. Now, I could be wrong, and I hope not, because I'm doing a how to play video. But a character's wounds start at 3. And so if you are going to reduce those by 1, That's wild. Wounds. There's only so much punishment that the human body can take before it gives up. Wounds are fully explained on 72, but most characters can only sustain 3 wounds before dying, and this takes a maximum wound away. The new album by Dashboard Confessional, Maximum Wounds. During combat and sometimes outside of it, characters will receive wounds and become injured. Each time a character receives a non-fatal wound, they suffer a cumulative -2 to all actions and must roll on the injuries table. This determines the nature of the injury. Okay, so bottom line, you're going to die pretty soon, or it's going to make you very close to death if you do that. Oxygen may not be rationed. So now that I painfully went through that, let me just say that again for those of you who are like, hey, I'm trying to learn this game. You get 6 oxygen tanks and supplies per crew member on any given voyage. If times get tough, if it's taking longer than you thought, or you want to ration just because, you can consume half your allotted food and water per week instead of the full amount. You cannot do this with oxygen. That cannot be rationed. This allows the crew to hold on longer than necessary, but it saps their strength, and the end of each week without full rations, maximum wounds is reduced by 1, and the character only recovers from this by eating normally for a week, not eating for the first time, eating normally for a week. And if maximum wounds are reduced to 0, the character dies. There's no death check here. There's no injuries. You're dead. When you reach the site, you have to determine what your site time is going to be. Site time is passage of time is going to be an ever-present threat. Events will move forward. Your batteries and oxygen will run out, and you will get hungry. All this is tracked with the help of the time track. As a rule of thumb, the time track advances in increments of 10 minutes, so each time track represents 1 hour. Events which move the time track forward mark 1 square and are noted with a 1+1 clock. And so, site expedition report, we have a time track here, and each one is 10 minutes. I would probably just use a die or, like some meeple adjacent thing. Instead of a box, I have a meeple foot. When using stealth or being cautious, this is +2. Entering a new area is +1. And again, this is going to, each 1 square is represented by a clock. When the time track fills, the character removes 1 battery and 1 oxygen pellet from their supplies and removes 1 ammo if they fired their weapon. So usually that's how ammo goes away. If you used it during a 10-minute time track, then you lose ×1 ammo. It's abstracted in that way. There's also certain things that you lose 1 ammo automatically in addition to that. So you just have to pay attention to that. And then it resets. And the reason why I would probably use like chits, dice, or like a dry erase board is because if I'm marking this box off every time I move, it's probably going to be pretty saturated very quickly with like hash marks being erased over and over again. When among a crew, if one character performs an action that advances the time track, the rest of the crew can also take an action without further advancing the time track. This makes sense if you do something simultaneously. You can voluntarily let time pass, whether you're waiting for a negative effect to pass or want to trigger a certain event. And that makes sense in terms of like maybe you want to wait out the clock if the threat of time passing is less than whatever the condition is. Then we are going to generate a site. And before I do that, I am just going to move, as I knew I would, moving this X down. And so I think we will finish generating the site. And then we'll start the next video with encounters. All right. After determining that there is in fact something worth exploring, it's time to detail what it looks like and what the crew can expect to it. All sites share basic but key details which influence the way the crew navigates them. Our site facilities have non-toxic but extremely oxygen-poor atmospheres, forcing all characters except those equipped with an LCR 3000, aka Palm Pilot. Just kidding. To always wear their oxygen mask. There is a 20% chance a site also requires hazmat or vac suit. If so, there's a 40% chance conditions are so dangerous as to require level A protection. All our site facilities have an artificial gravity of 1.5 G unless otherwise specified. I'm going to pause for a second so that I make sure that I know what level A protection is. Okay, that actually took a little bit longer than I thought it would, and I think I may send a question to the author about this. Basically, the question I have is that you're exploring these RSI facilities, and when you get there, unless you have an LCR 3000, which I guess is some sort of advanced module, either that or a certain thing that's some. I guess I should have looked this up. Oh, LCR 3000. The lung conversion respirator 3000 is the latest in a long time line of pulmonary modifications created for low oxygen environments such as deep earth mines and toxic atmospheres. Okay, so that's an augmentation. Essentially, what this says is when you get to the site, you're going to roll a D100, and if you roll under 20, you have to wear a hazmat or vac suit, which is no problem because that is part of the basic survival package right here is a hazmat and a vac suit. If it does require that, then you have to roll again at 40% that it could require level A protection, which not only is level A not included in the standard thing, but it also costs 400 credits, whereas the level B hazmat suit, the hazmat mask, and a vac suit are all free, okay? And so the question I have is if I travel all the way to a place and then I find out, like, nobody's been there before, so it's a new site, and I do a test and it says, oh, yep, I need a hazmat and vac suit. Okay, I got to put that on. Great. Or a hazmat or vac suit, I got to put that on. Okay. Now I roll again and it says, oh crap, I also need a level A hazmat suit and I didn't buy that. My question is then, do you got to go home after all that travel? Do you just have to go back? Because the level A hazmat suit you're going to need that to ignore rads. And I guess as I'm speaking through this right now, potentially I have considered an option here, although I'd have to work this out, is that there is a table I guess either a table or some sort of chart here that talks about in the rules section suffering like radiation exposure. And so I suppose maybe I could go out in that, but then I would have to endure radiation exposure. So I'll take a look at that. I'll figure that out, or maybe we might encounter something that that gives us the answer to this. But if I could just summarize my concern, it's that I feel as though I would always want to carry level A hazmat suits, because if I got to a place and I needed that, at least level A protection, right? There are suits that are stronger than that, like this like Drake skin suit does it all. But if I got there and I needed that and didn't have it, that would be an incredible waste of resources and time. And so I'm just wondering, first of all, is that true? Second of all, is there a way to endure the radiation and like explore partially and then come back later? Or C, is there a way to find that out in advance? I suppose not. If you're going to an unknown site, you're just sort of rolling the dice. So I guess if I went to an unknown site, I would definitely pack a level A hazmat suit for me and my crew. Okay. Let's move on and see maybe over time we'll figure out a little bit more about that. So then we're going to generate the random name site, and we're also going to then roll. Oh, this is fun. I actually want to try this here for a second. So a random site name. I love these ones that involve syllables. So this random site is 10 net 55 55. Nettle. And then I guess the last one is just these 55 again. That's why you hate when I roll dice, isn't it, people? 72. We have now embarked on Nettle-456612. And the original purpose of Nettle, and we could do a d20 for this, is for a temple. So am I generating, this is generating the site or the, yeah, I guess this is the site and not the planet or wherever so that's, its original purpose is a temple. Whether or not the Arsai were religious, some of their facilities offered no purpose other than a space for spiritual enlightenment and contemplation. And then a site story. 1. Overrun by creatures. Overall site descriptor. That's a D12. 11. Visibly plundered or partially destroyed. Planetary site, overall descriptor. 7. Within a mountain. Site activity and known threats. That's a D6. 1. Deathly quiet, one possible encounter. So a 1 would be good. Each time the time track resets, though, you have to roll a d10 to perform an activity check. If the result is 1 or 2, you are ambushed by a randomly determined known threat. These encounters are considered ambush attacks, so the enemies receive +2 on their initiative roll. Okay. So we've rolled up a site, and now I roll a d6 to determine the maximum number of potential ambushes. Ambushes are not your usual encounters. So we're kind of like these known threats. We're rolling the 1d6 to see how many there possibly could be, right? So it's quiet. There's 2 possible encounters. And we're like, okay, so we have 2 of these that if I fail this activity check, if I roll a 1 or 2, I'm going to be ambushed by this known threat. And these known threats are located in the bestiary. And there is ways to like also generate this stuff. But like this would be an example of a known threat as a clobber. Has all their stats there. Sorry, hit the mic. Dominant site hazard. That's a D8. Oh, I have the big D8. 4. Overrun. So this is really consistent rolling here. There's nothing but hungry shadows with vicious teeth in here. All encounters are with aberrations which lead to instant combat. Okay, don't know what aberration. So then we do the site size. We do the site expedition report. This means like what we're going to be able to find. And again, if it's like a known site, we have to reduce this by half. The crew can leave at any time, but once the sheet's been filled, the crew can be certain there's no reason to linger. Since it doesn't make sense for a station or other self-contained area to have an infinite diversity of creatures, you must roll on the site's encounter tables found on the site report sheet before each encounter. This table will start off empty, but as empty slots are rolled, it will continually fill up. Oh, I kind of like this, actually, if I understand this correctly. So there's this site encounter table. All right. Okay, so like this site encounter table here is a D12, and I would roll on it, and every time I roll something blank, I would, generate a creature or an encounter of some kind. And then if I say I rolled a 5, and I had to fill that up with a creature. Every time I have an encounter after that, I would roll again. If I rolled a number 5 again, I would just automatically have that same encounter with that creature, although they could be of a different difficulty. But then if I rolled one that hasn't been filled yet, I would fill it up with a different one. And so this tracks different creature types, but I guess it makes it easy on us by not having to continually generate, especially at the same site. What I'm curious about right now is like how long in real time, like my time, is like a full site expedition going to take. Some area connectors, area events, encounters. So I guess like once you develop these like known threats, what you're determining here is, you could, if you roll a 1 or a 2 on an activity check, and that's when the time track resets. So you have to fill out each, 6 10-minute slots. You could get ambushed by these. But that does not mean that you can't just have an encounter otherwise that's not an ambush, because as you're doing site exploration, you can run into it. This will give us the encounter difficulty. Variable encounter difficulty. For more variable difficulty, roll below for each encounter whether it has been registered in the expedition report or not. So that's giving a more granular change to the encounter difficulty. And then we have resources. So this is the last thing I want to put my thinking brain on because this is important. Aside from report data and scavenge scraps, resources are almost always things like RSI data crystals, small multifaceted purple crystals for data storage, and A-metal alloy cubes, the only inactive and therefore malleable form of A-metal found. Data crystals are light, and the KSA pays 50 credits for each. Alloy cubes occupy 1 gear slot, and the KSA pays 75 for each. Each time the resources result appears on the site exploration table, the crew finds D10 data crystals and D6 alloy cubes. Okay, so when we're exploring, we find and we hit that resources, we're going to roll D10 and D6 for data crystals and alloy cubes. And the alloy cubes are what I was talking about, is these like the only form of this like extremely invulnerable advanced metal, this A metal, that's once it's formed into something, it can't be unformed or reformed. That's why these cubes, they're still malleable. They're so valuable. I would expect them to be a little bit more than 1 gear slot, because I think you could have 10 light things to equal 1 gear slot. But, I would much rather find data crystals than alloy cubes, because alloy cubes take up what is potentially 10 light slots. But only have a 25 credit increase. I have to think about that. Sometimes an unlikely crew will find a site almost depleted of data crystals and alloy cubes. Still, even R-side junk could be of interest to the KSA. An ambitious crew can spend time and make a single R-side technology check to scavenge for scrap. And again, that's one of the skills. If they succeed, they find 1 gear slot worth of scrap worth a combined value of D100 DC, which of course, because I feel like it, boys, we're taking home 38 credits worth of scrap. 36. As the crew bags start to get full, players might decide to backtrack and deposit their finds in the ship's cargo. This is perfectly possible, so it's recommended to draw a schematic of the site. After all, characters will still spend resources on their way back to the ship, and combat encounters are still possible. So one of the reasons... Oh, by the way, this encounters page actually has a pretty cool thing here. One of the reasons that I did want to put my thinking brain on to talk about this is really the way that you're going to advance in the game, is through these resources, right? This is sort of the loot credit system. These alloy cubes and the data crystals, and then also these xenoanthropological artifacts. RSI tools, weapons, and other historical or archaeological finds. I'm already going into encounters, so I should stop after this. Humanity is attempting to piece together the answer to a very important question. Exactly who the freak were the RSI? Each time an artifact result appears on the site exploration table, the crew finds D4 artifacts. The nature of these finds varies immensely, but you may use the following table to get an idea. Let's just try here. 6. A flat piece of unbreakable glass in a small silver frame. 1 gear slot. I like that you bring it back to the ship. Something I'm going to look up is if the ship... I guess, yes, the ship does have a limit to that as well, although you're probably going to clear some out with the travel with oxygen and stuff. So I like that. You could just bring it back to the ship. I actually love the idea of this because this is one of my favorite parts of games, even video games. For instance, like one of my favorite things to do is in a game called Don't Starve, just like the beginning of the game when you have to collect wood and hay and stuff. The idea of just like collecting resources is very motivating to me. Your mileage may vary. Then you could interact with those artifacts. You could determine the value of them, and we'll stop with a hazard manifestation. So what I want to say here, and I'm sorry that one wasn't as clean cut as the combat one. I'll make it up on the next one. I was expecting that to be a little bit more simple than it was, but I'm glad we got through it. I think that this is where we're going to generate a lot of the answers to the mysteries of this lore as we find this different stuff and explore these things, because this game presents a lot of interesting questions, but as such, at least without seeing supplements or anything, or having read through the missions yet, I don't really know if we know exactly what the hell's going on here. And so this is where it gets very exciting to me when we can actually figure this stuff out. But that is going to be it for this video. We will continue on. I may have to redo this list because it's kind of falling apart here. Because I guess I'm on encounters, but resources we just talked about, site exploration. So we'll probably get into NPCs, antagonists, Karam Station. I think we're going to have videos 4 or 5, and then maybe with 6, we'll have a recap where we put things together. But that's it for me. Again, if you enjoy what you saw, go ahead and subscribe. My other videos are a lot dumber, which you might like better. And I'm going to take a break, eat 4 Oreos, and then do the first episode of the Waffle Cast. A reminder, if you use promo code MANALONE20 on towerhousecreative.com, you can get 20% off. We're also running a contest right now to see what is the silliest, most absurd, most ridiculous thing that you can use to solo play. For instance, although I kind of decorated it, I have this can of sweet peas. I will not be using this stuff for the role-playing of it. If I get 50 entries to that contest, I will make a video where I use that can of sweet peas to solo play. That and some dice. And so please just throw it on an idea. It takes about 4 to 5 minutes. It could be 3 sentences of how the game would work. I have laughed so hard at the submissions already. One person who could not participate for conflict of interest reasons said that they would love to use their junk mail, which I thought was an amazing idea. I collect all my junk mail and put it in a bonfire at the end of the year. And then the other offering was entropy, watching something rot and using that as like a clock system. So whatever you want, the weirder the better. It doesn't have to actually like be fully thought out, but please give it your best shot because we have not only a Fate Mill up for grabs, but also the Bell Whispers supplement from Tower House Creative and a full starter kit. Dragonbane starter kit is up for grabs for those that live in the US. I will put the link to that below. I would love to hear your submission now through May 12th, 2024. That's it for me. Thanks for joining. And remember, always just have a great time. Bye, everyone.